Mine?
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 Mine? Mine? Okay.
God damn it.
That crack up.
God damn it. I am now crying.
Do a barrel roll. Yeah.
Mission accomplished.
I didn't know we had a mission to do, but just...
Back to the Bunnycast,
Fine.
where my life is continually made hard. Please, sir, may I have another?
Mine?
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 Okay, as you can hear, we still have with us Ajac and ChroniclerC.
So
He is not...
Yes,
he is not cleaning it.
I'm Ajac. Hello.
Hi.
We still have Sheldon, we still have ChroniclerC, we still have Sir Xepharon the Prepared, and breaking down into a puddle of goo is Daniel the Prepared. Fuck! Daniel on the LeatherClad, prepare me for that. I don't know.
I'm getting more strange looks with my laughter.
Fuck it, I'm just moving on. Yes, we are earning the adult tag on this podcast today. Okay, the primary topic of conversation is going to be, and yes, this is a long one, the Mormon Church, homosexuality, the Human Rights Campaign, and Elder Packer.
Wow.
Yes. So, for those of you who are... Yeah, we promised you this would be gay. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the Mormon Church enough to not know who Elder Packer is, first off, every 6 months, the church... which is actually entitled The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Okay, before you go on, I have to interrupt. I do apologize, and I know I'm going to hell for this if I don't suffer from a box of email complaints that's going to be on fire. But am I the only one who notices the irony of his name, Elder Packer?
Oh, that's already been brought up.
Okay. Speaking of which, I had a friend who moved down to Texas a long time ago. And then he ended up giving me a call. We were talking, asking how each other were doing. I said, so what are you doing anymore? He says, yeah, I work in I was like, a what? I work in a packaging department of a chocolate factory. I lost it. I immediately proceeded to have 5 minutes of crying laughter and calling him a fudge packer for about the next 10 minutes.
Remember, kids, no matter what South Park tells you, Tom Cruise is not a fudge packer.
So, every 6 months, the church has something called General Conference. In the early days of the church, this was so that various people from around the world and who were members of the church could gather in Salt Lake City, Utah, to receive what was the most timely and up-to-date information from the leadership of the church. It has since just become sort of the annual, or semi-annual, I should say. This is the general state of the church, and but by the way, here's some interesting things that are happening, since of course everybody can now get it streaming live over the internet. So it's like there's no need to gather, but people still do because it's the thing to do. Every 6 months, Elder Packer gets up and delivers yet another bit of anti-homosexual preachifying.
Preachify!
Now, there is an official church position on homosexuality. And that official church position is that homosexuality is a real thing. It's something that various people have as a condition of their existence. As a church that has...
Hold on. A condition? Make it sound like an illness.
Well,
a condition of their existence. It's treated in the same way as, like, say, breathing.
You're male.
You're left-handed or right-handed, or you have blue eyes or green eyes. That kind of thing. Not necessarily a trait that is inherent to, vitally important to your continued existence as an eternal being. But this is where you are right now. This is you have blue eyes, green hair because you color it that way, and you happen to be gay. Okay, so what? Now, because the church has certain rules and regulations about who can go to the temple, serve in the priesthood, etc., there are certain people who do not qualify. Now, there for those things. Anybody who wants to can attend the church. Anybody who wants to can pray to God. Anybody who is on this planet is a child of God and is loved by God as a father loves their children. However,
as a catch.
As an artifact of the fact that this is a church and there's certain rules and regulations that I'm not going to go into right now because that's a whole other conversation.
Entirely different kettle of fish.
Gay people and lesbians cannot live in a marriage type, and we've already been over my views on marriage, a marriage type relationship, because that is considered to be an extramarital sexual activity, and you cannot have extramarital sexual activities and still be considered an upstanding member of the church. If you, like any other non-married member of the church, choose not to have sex, great, you can do whatever you want. But if you are not married...
What human does that?
Several, as a matter of fact.
That's the church's position on homosexuality. Nothing personal. We have rules. They're set. We're not going to change them just because of this. That having been said, there are people who, within the church, who take that as license to declare all homosexuals as inherent sinners, and they're going to gay just by virtue of the fact that they're homosexual. They're going to hell just by the virtue of the fact that they're gay. Yes, I said that weird.
I'm just laughing. I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to say yes.
Shut up! Stop making fun of me!
You are correct. They are going to gay because they're gay.
Stop it! Stop it!
I think we broke him.
Gay is now a verb.
And the worst part is these so-called members of God's church also take this as liberty to perform acts of violence, basically acts of hate against people who are gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender. Now, as a active member of the church who also happens to be transgender, you can understand why this pisses me off no end.
I can understand why you also tend to keep more quiet about it than anything.
Yes.
I would like
just do what I do. Just do what I do. Make sure that whenever you move, make sure that anybody and everybody can see you carry all 34 swords that you have. They will leave you alone. Carry each one individually. Make 35 trips. That's not including the dagger, spears, axes, multi-bladed weapons, combat knives, and other things that I carry. Yes, I collect weaponry.
That's actually, in the fine words of one of our most badass presidents of all time, Teddy Roosevelt, speak softly
and carry a big stick.
I have several big sticks. In fact, one of mine is 6.5 feet long, and very cutting. It's cutting edge technology.
So,
a stick is cutting edge technology?
No,
yes.
My sword is.
Well, there is that.
Now,
my sword has cutting edge technology.
There is research which shows that homosexuality is something that you're born with. Being transgender and having been, born this way, I kind of tend to agree. So, in essence...
I don't know. I mean, it's one of those things I think highly debatable.
Well, okay.
But it's one of those things that I doubt it's one way or the other. It's probably something in between.
Sexuality is plastic, as I heard one researcher put it. Yes, it can change over time. However, research strongly points to, and again, my own experience as a transgendered person strongly points to, this particular aspect of a person is something that they happen to be born with. Either that they are predisposed to having an attraction to the same sex, or, as in my case, they are in some way congenitally predisposed to thinking as a member of the opposite sex. I don't know why I think like a girl, but I think like a girl. I act like a girl.
No, I suppose that makes sense in the way that perhaps, according to anatomy and the way, if I can remember my biology classes right, which I probably can't, but oh well. At some point during the way that the cellular structure begins when the two cells meet, at some point the X chromosome and the Y chromosome, whenever that goes to being male, because all humans start out with the as the female variant, and at some point a chemical reaction has to take place to go ahead and make it towards male. If I remember correctly. Now, I could be remembering this incorrectly.
You are correct. I have a vested interest in this area of research.
So, continuing on then, maybe at some point the chemical reaction takes place to change to where the physical properties of cell cluster is going to be male, but however, the chemical reaction took place enough for the physical to take place, but not so much the mental. I don't know.
Or vice versa, enough that the mental change happens, but not the physical.
Not the physical. Yeah, exactly. Or like I said, it's theory. I'm no scientist, but it makes sense. Why not? I mean, personally, I can go either way.
An incomplete thing, a hormonal imbalance.
Sure.
Okay, so
it sounds kosher to more sciencey people.
So, again, there is evidence, and maybe not necessarily conclusive, but there is evidence that this is a congenital condition. You're born that way. Not necessarily genetic, but it happens at some point in the developmental stages before you even exit the womb. Now,
see, that I can believe. I don't believe I don't think it would be hereditary so much as
We'd be dead.
Yeah, hereditary doesn't make sense, but
I mean, I don't even consider it necessarily technically genetic so much as, I guess what you might say, just a chemical mishap. Although it's not necessarily a bad thing, it's just
developmental.
Somewhere along
developmental. Who's a what's it?
Whatever the cause.
You cannot have developmental without mental.
It is what it is, and I hate that phrase, but the point being that there's evidence of this is not anybody's particular fault, except maybe our maker. So Elder Packer gets up behind the podium, and his talk, if this year or this last October, isn't even about homosexuality. It's being redeemed from a sinful state, or something like that. It's humans are sinful. Let's redeem them. Okay, that's fine. That's a topic. You'll roll with it. He then uses the podium as a platform for, once again, even though his topic had nothing to do with homosexuality, going on about gay marriage and homosexuality. And again, I'm opposed to gay marriage, but I'm not opposed to homosexuality. I don't think it's inherently sinful for a person to be homosexual, but he's going on and on about how it is, and why would God make you that way? And naturally...
Because he wants to.
That's... yes. That's...
I wouldn't even say because he wants to, but more along the lines of...
Because it's important to have diversity.
Yeah, something along that lines. That it's important that he maintains the proper randomness, I guess.
Robin Prince of Thieves, the one with Kevin Costner and Morgan Freeman. Morgan Freeman's character is asked by a small child why God painted him. And the character leans down and says, because Allah loves variety.
Here's what I think happens. I think God takes a D5 and rolls it.
Maybe a D pie.
The chaplain of my university actually takes that as an article of faith. She has offered to bless the dice that we play D&D with, as well as the math that we play on.
Okay.
Nice.
Ajac, Zeph, you officially win an internet each.
Yeah. Einstein was wrong. God not only plays dice, he plays D&D.
I like it. Okay, so
I made sure to put a temporary amusement as one of my stats in my character sheet when I was born.
Yeah.
Now, one thing that I have noticed is within the churches, every time Elder Packer gets up and goes on about this garbage, anti-gay sentiment within the church notches up a little bit. Now, I want to point out that for the last, I want to say, 5 to 10 years, ever since President Hinckley, who predates the current President Monson, started talking about the subject of homosexuality, the message from the first presidency of the church has almost uniformly been, I'm going to emphasize almost uniformly been, we don't approve of a homosexual lifestyle, but if you are homosexual, that's fine with us. You can attend, you can join the church, you can do whatever you want. There are certain things that you cannot do, but then again, there are certain things that our single members can't do. There are certain things that are
Youth members.
Youth members, yeah, exactly. There are certain offices that certain people can't fill, and unfortunately, the ones that are the most high profile are the ones that you can't fill if you happen to be a practicing homosexual.
Here's my view, and I think it's pretty simple. I would say even to the bunnies right now, you listeners don't have to answer, but think about this: who among you is straight? Who among you is not? How many of you do not like the homosexual community? How many do? Now, having thought about that for the 5 seconds that I gave you, how many of you think it really matters? Because when it comes down to it, you're all still people. You're all still just searching for that person to fall in love with. And even if that person that you fall in love with is of the same gender, how does it impact you negatively? How? Oh my God, this person goes for someone of the same gender.
Yeah.
But overall, other than that, they're still a pretty decent guy. I love hanging out with them.
Well, it's like what I said to one of the people from Apple that I went out and equal with. I don't care who the person, or I don't care if the soldier is gay or straight, as long as they're competently trained and they keep their guns pointed at the bad guys.
Pretty much. I mean, I don't see why a person's orientation really makes an impact, because if you want to, defend the country and be patriotic, then by all means, you should be allowed to do that.
Here's my thing. The way I look at it is a soldier is tantamount the same as a police officer or a fireman or anyone else who defends the lives of others. So, ask yourself this. If you are trapped in a burning building and a fireman appears to save your life, are you going to give 3 shits what their orientation is so long as they save your life?
No.
So, again...
of course, now there's a question. How do you measure value in the amount of shits?
All right, let's just back on track.
Stay on target.
Okay, so, again, I've noticed that anti-gay sentiment ratchets up a notch, but the general trend over time has been anti-gay sentiments going away. And I'd like to point out that this whole anti-gay sentiment thing within the church started back in the 70s when a vehemently, militantly anti-gay person was put in charge of BYU, Brigham Young University, a.k.a. the Mormon school, a.k.a. God's school. So within the church, a BYU graduate is, for some obscure reason, considered to be highly valued. Even if they're dumb as a post, if they have graduated BYU, somehow they're better. Again, this is a cultural thing. This is not an actual doctrinal thing. Somehow they're considered to be better for whatever than somebody who graduated from, say, SDSU or UC Santa Clara or Boulder University or wherever. Somehow, within the church culture, BYU is awesome. It drives me up a wall.
what's there?
It's a nice school. They got some fantastic research that goes on there, excellent libraries, wonderful research material, but it's not better than any particular other school. It's just a school. But since an entire generation of BYU graduates were drilled into this anti-gay screed, I mean, this guy actually hired off-duty, corrupt LAPD police officers to enforce his anti-gay measures on BYU and the surrounding area. That tells you how bad this guy was. He was in charge of a whole generation's worth of graduates of BYU. And they go out into the world and into the church, and they wind up getting positions of authority and at the local levels, and so that continues to spread until finally the presidency of the church says, okay, we're not supposed to be an anti-gay church. We're not supposed to be an anti-anybody church. This is God's church. We're supposed to be loving and accepting of everybody. So they kick into gear this motion to get the church away from being considered an anti-gay church. Probably a little too late for that, but we're making inroads. We're developing ourselves as a church to get to the point where we're not seen as anti-gay. Okay, that's fine, that's dandy, that's good. But then Elder Packer keeps getting up and he says shit like he just said this last October, right in the middle of a rash of suicides across the nation of gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgendered youths who have been bullied and picked on and beaten up and assaulted and kicked out by their own families. Some of these are from the church itself, and he gets up and he says this shit when the topic of his discourse was supposed to be something entirely different, only fanning the flames even more. Of course the gay community is going to be pissed. And
well, frack him and the horse he rode in on.
Exactly. The Human Rights Campaign starts up a campaign to try to get the church to reverse what Elder Packer said, get him to publicly correct his statements. And I remember coming home that Monday after work, after hearing about the Human Rights Campaign's thing, telling my wife, this is going to be the church's antenna-gate. For those of you who are unfamiliar, Apple had a problem with the iPhone 4 where if you hold it a certain way, this was discovered on launch day, that all of a sudden all the bars would drop off.
It ground it out, didn't it?
Close. It had to do with impedance and signal strength and antenna location. But the point was that even though it was technically this is a really small problem, only affecting maybe 3 to 5% of the people who buy iPhones, and there were solutions being worked on as the problem was being discovered.
It's a huge thing.
It still wound up being, yes, thank you, it still wound up being the biggest kerfuffle in recent memory regarding an Apple product, because supposedly Apple was shipping, quote, a defective product. Even if it was not defective, it was just negatively impacting certain tiny select segments of user experience, but it happened in such a way that everybody thought it was a huge deal, and the media really did have a hand in making it a much bigger incident than it really necessarily had to be. In the end, they had to have a special press conference where Steve Jobs got up on stage, had a bunch of expert testimony and said, this is what we're doing, we're giving away product in order to resolve this issue. Please stop talking about it. It's done. Ajac, that was you.
Possibly.
I love the media sometimes. I love the media.
I tell my wife this is going to be the church's antenna gate, and she's all, what are you talking about? This is the general authority of the church. And I reply to her, yes, and Jonah was a prophet. A small tangent for a little bit of education for those unfamiliar with the Old Testament. Jonah,
eaten by a whale.
From the book of the Old Testament.
No, fish. For heaven's sakes, it's a fish. That's the point. It's a ginormous fish.
Could have been a whale shark, but we don't know for sure. Anyways, so
it could have been anything. Were you there? No. You weren't there. You don't know.
I say it was an octopus.
Stop it. So, okay.
It's a giant squid.
Yes, that's what he's most well known for, is being swallowed by a giant fish and then spit up 3 days later. But
how do you survive that?
You can survive up to 30 days without food. Moving on.
Yeah, but he's underwater. No.
Stay on target.
Jonah's original purpose was to go to the city Nineveh and preach a prophecy and the gospel to the Ninevites. He was called to do that by God specifically, as in a prophet of God told by God himself, you're going here and you're doing this. And he said, no, and he went the other direction.
Right?
Because he was a racist fuck.
Who wanted the Ninevites to die horribly.
Exactly.
Admittedly, he wanted the Assyrians to die horribly because they had done horrible things to everyone else, and he knew that God is merciful, and that if he wouldn't preach, the people would repent, and then they would die.
Well, the point being is that he was a racist moron who did not want these people to receive any of God's word. He did not want them to be saved from anything. He wanted them to die horribly. Whatever the reason, that's not the way a prophet is supposed to act or be. Now, at this point, this is where you slap a big old sticker that says, learning experience, and Jonah is supposed to learn the error of his ways, right? No. The last we hear of Jonah is him throwing a hissy fit that the Ninevites weren't smited to the ground in a great firestorm.
And God saying, you're a dick.
Yeah, even after all that happened, all the support God gave him, all the teaching and lessons and divine visitations and visions and everything that happened to Jonah, he still was a major tool. And so whenever anybody tells me, but they're the prophet of the church, or they're a general authority, or they're in the first presidency of the stake, I say yes, and Jonah was a prophet.
That makes sense now.
Not right. It just means you have authority.
Exactly. Now,
unfortunately, I fully understand. I fully agree. Unfortunately, when it comes to like biblical teachings and whatnot, I am not very knowledgeable. I didn't really pay a whole lot of attention when I was in Sunday school and church. And quite honestly, I don't go to church now. But be that as it may, I also want to clarify that that's not to say that I don't have any beliefs. I most certainly do. But I personally think that, one doesn't have to go to a church to be religious. But that's just my own personal preference and belief.
That's a whole lot of...
Do as you will.
Anyway.
Do as you will, think as you may. Enjoy yourself, live your life as you see fit. But please don't blow up my inbox.
Please.
And please don't be a dick.
And please don't be a dick. Yes, thank you. So the Human Rights Campaign is starting to step up their game. And basically, they're collecting signatures, sending letters, etc., etc., eventually getting to the point where they say, okay, church, Mormon church, you're not doing anything. We're coming to you. And that day, the church had to do a press release. It's like, oh dear. And here's what tells me that Elder Packer really stepped in at this time. The church, when they posted Elder Packer's comments, had to modify his speech when posting it to the LDS website to, quote, clarify his comments. And then they had to give a press release reaffirming the church's actual position. And it was full court press. There was a guy who was a member of the church, and I would play it for you if I had a way to pipe the audio into the recording. Point being that this was bad enough. He really screwed up enough that the church actually had to take massive corrective measures that they almost never do. The whole Prop 8 thing, they never had a public apology press conference. And that generated so much bad press. It was almost unprecedented in the history of the church, within this last 100 years.
You would think that if he's messing up this much, they'd remove him from office by now. If he's got to be more trouble than it's worth by now.
Everybody's having too much fun with him.
I'm starting to wonder if he's starting to approach that point. At some point, he's going to get to the point where he's not taking the feedback. He's not listening to them say, "Okay, stop talking about this." Because it's like I have the bishop that is head of our ward right now. He was a major tool to my wife and I when he first started in, and to this day, neither of us trust him to be in the same area with him, unless it's a large social function where only thing we have to say to him is hi. But we still pay tithing on envelopes marked with his name on it because he's the one that's there right now. He's there for a purpose. Who knows what that purpose is? Maybe that purpose is so that my wife and I stop relying on the bishopric to go to our problems with and just start solving our problems on our own.
Or maybe the other way around, to teach him some kind of lesson,
exactly,
acceptance or whatever.
That's the
Possibly
other.
both, because God's that kind of teacher.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe this really is a Jonah complex.
So,
I don't know.
yeah, no, and I'm of the opinion that, well, if I'm being given this calling because I could learn more from it than the people I'm supposedly supposed to be helping or teaching, good Lord, what's the prophet supposed to be learning?
Jesus. Yeah, I can't really actually offer my opinions or my actual views so much as my musings and whatnot because I have no experience. I haven't actually met the guy. I haven't actually heard the guy. Disclaimer.
Yes. So, did you guys want to talk any more about this, or should we move on to webcomic reviews?
I think you summed it up pretty nicely.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think we've covered. Let's review.
The horse is dead.
Elder Packer is a dick.
The horse is dead. We've beaten it a lot. Moving on.
We can beat it more.
Ajax, what were you saying there?
Let's review. Elder Packer is a dick. The Mormon Church is not anti-gay, and everyone should learn to get along as best they can.
There you go. That's perfect.
The more you know.
It sounds kind of like sort of a Mormon religious version of Sesame Street.
But no Elmo. Elmo is evil.
Cookie Monster. Elmo's driving.
Elmo is not evil.
Oh,
What the hell was that?
stop it, please. Stop.
Well, Elmo was driving. That's why.
That's the terrifying thing.
Our downstairs neighbor gave us a Tickle Me Elmo doll for our daughter. We have
God.
not put batteries in it because we know what will happen when we do.
You are smart
turns
parents. You are smart parents.
So I'm going to go ahead and open up the webcomic or the reviews. By the way, we're introducing book reviews as well now. But I'm going to open it up with Dumbing of Age by David Willis. Those of you who are webcomic reading veterans will recognize David Willis as the author of Roomies, It's Walkie, and what's her name? I just had it.
I know of It's Walkie. To clarify.
So, now one thing about Dumbing of Age is Joyce, Walkie and Joyce, or Joyce and Walkie. Rather. One thing you'll recognize about, and Short Packs, he does a lot. One thing you'll recognize about Dumbing of Age is that's Joyce, and that's Billy, and that's Walkie, and by golly, that's Danny and Joe. Yes, these are a lot of if not all of the same characters, and I think he even brought in a couple from Short Pack. He does not venture far from what he knows works, which is fine because he manages to make what he does work very, very well. That being said, this is not the It's Walkie universe. There's no sci-fi, there's no aliens, at least not yet. There's no wacky hijinks involving large quantities of explosives. It's just a bunch of people going to college. Rather like Roomies was. Basically, this looks like it's a sort of a return to his roots back to when he was doing Roomies. And with differences to the characters. Danny is more clueless. Walkie is more competent. Joe is just as much of a smarm as ever, but not the hidden genius smarm. And so on and so forth. If you like David Willis's work, you will like this. If you like the art but never were keen on the storyline, this might be up your alley. It's very much a sort of a Friends meets webcomics sort of feel to it without the abject idiocy that Friends was. More of a gag-a-day. There's some story arc there. you should get a kick out of it. I'm going to say read it, but not terribly high. Excuse me, high priority, especially if you have not yet read Rumi's It's Walkie, Jason Walkie, or Shortback. So go read those first.
Okay.
So, Xepharon, do you want to see if there's going to be a lull in the noise, or if you're going to try
I can try to overtalk the noise, or at least cup the microphone a little bit so that it kind of blocks out most of it. How's that?
That does help, and when
That's
you
better.
talk, it mutes the sound in the back a little bit. So go ahead.
I have just realized I'm a little out of place. I know it's kind of random, but I'm a little out of place in this coffee cafe. I'm in Starbucks, and I'm looking around. I'm wearing kind of like a white cargo shorts nerd T-shirt, and everybody else around me has suits, ties, and collared T-shirts on, and I'm like the outcast. Anyway, I'm reviewing a comic that I'm probably mispronouncing. Which is kind of odd, given that it's a comic that has its name is 4 letters long, but Ivan or Avon or something, EVON. I'm not entirely sure, but the comic itself is I'm going to say NSFW for strong language, sexual themes, violence. Hell, it's on the page that it's about. Anyway, the comic itself, it's still a young comic. It's been going for probably a few months now. Maybe a bit longer than that, but I'm not entirely sure when it started. Anyway, the comic itself features this is another anthro comic, like I tend to review a lot of. I don't know why. I keep finding these. The main character, a heroine named Ivan, is actually an anthro bear, which is something you don't usually see, which I think is kind of cool. She is trying. The comic originally starts out. She's trying to get something back from someone who stole something from her, an artifact of some kind, supposed to be handed down from her family. What?
Or something?
I'm trying to be yes.
Some kind. How about this? Let's just say some to the 5th power and go from there.
Something somewhere.
Is trying to get something to the 5th power, and it basically hires on you might call, not exactly a mercenary so much as a hero who will only take on certain quests with someone only if he believes in it, which has actually earned this guy a rather good reputation. His name is I want to pronounce it Herodotus, or Hero for short.
That's actually pronounced Herodotus, but
Herodotus, thank you.
It's Greek.
I had no idea. Herodotus, who accompanies Avon through this quest. This comic features lots of magic, sorcery, fighting, combat, and as I mentioned before, sexual themes. But actually, that's not at all the focus. It's actually just part of the story, which is really cool. Unfortunately, like I said, the comic is still young, so I really can't do a whole lot of review other than saying that I have read through up to current. I like the art style from beginning to current, and you can actually see within the 200 or so pages that the art style has improved from the beginning. And overall, it's got a storyline that's actually promising. It's going to be something that's very good. I like it. Check it out. Unfortunately, I don't have a whole lot of review commentary. Anyway, you can find this at bearstudios.smackjeeves.com/comics, and that will get you to Ivan.
Well, one thing that I noticed about it is that the most recent art style displayed by the artist, when I first hopped in, I'm thinking, wow, this is stretched. And then I took another look at it. This almost looks a little bit like Jay Naylor's artwork. But it's enough to the point where I wanted to go and take a look at the artist's name just to be sure it wasn't Jay Naylor.
Yeah. No, it's not. No, Jay Naylor is actually more established and actually has a very defined art style, which I very much enjoy. No, this artist is not Jay Naylor.
Yeah, no, I saw that. I did see that. I noticed that the early art is fairly standardly, early furry art. This would be 2008. There's one thing about furry art is that a lot of the early works by furry artists tend to be samey. And this is still in that region if you look at the early archives. But as it moves on, it's starting to very much resemble Jay Naylor's work, which I'm sure that's not going to stay there. She's probably going to develop her own style. And I'm beating this into the ground. Sorry.
No, you're all right. You're all right.
One more dead horse.
Yes.
Take it back to the range and shoot it.
So, ChroniclerC.
Throw it on the pile with the others.
I have books. Physical, good old-fashioned, you read them, books.
You old bastard.
Yes. What can I say? Couple
totally
books.
threw off the right train of thought. Derailment. Go me.
Woo, woo, there goes the train of thought.
You forgot the board.
Books.
Damn it. Books.
Mine?
Books. Couple of books by Cory Doctorow, For the Win and Little Brother.
There's a book called For the Win?
What?
There's a book called For the Win.
Yes.
There is.
I like it already. FTW.
For the Win is written from the perspective of... Well, it's about a bunch of... the economics of a bunch of fake MMOs. MMORPGs.
I already like
Not from the inside, but from the outside. It's written from the perspective of Chinese and Indian gold farmers who are trying to create labor unions.
Oh, for
It's actually very engaging.
It really is. But I've been told by Helen that it's already got plenty of good reviews, it's got plenty of exposure, so I'm going to talk about the other book, which does not have as much exposure, and I think might be a bit more interesting for people. It's called Little Brother. If you go to your local library, it's very likely it's in the young adult section. I don't know why. But it's it's about a bunch of kids. Not like kids, like high schoolers. They're out one day chasing out this ARG, this alternate reality game. They're internet game that has them go to real life places, find clues, yada yada yada. Over the course of this, however, where they go, and then there's a terrorist attack.
Dun,
One of their
dun,
friends
dun.
Because they were there, skipping school, looking kind of suspicious, they get taken by Department of Homeland Security, who thinks they are terrorists.
Oh, God.
Obviously they aren't, and eventually releases them, but the main character has kind of had his life changed by fake Guantanamo Bay type interrogation, and decides to fight back hacker style.
Mm-hmm.
Reminds me of another comic. Anyway.
It's a good read. Doctorow does great work explaining some of the more deep concepts in layman's terms. He does that a lot in For the Win as well. He's very good at that. He seems to have his fingers in a lot of different pies. It's kind of fascinating. They're both really good reads. Check them out if you get the chance. That's For the Win and Little Brother, both by Cory Doctorow.
Sounds like I should actually maybe try reading one of these, what do you call them, books?
Yes, they are available electronically if you need them.
Electronically.
Oh, okay. I was going to be at a loss for a moment here.
Ebook versions exist.
I can get them
Go
online
to your
then.
local library, make friends with the librarians. Librarians are your friends. Yeah, that's what I got.
Okay. So, Ajac, you were going to review something that sounds intriguing.
Alright. So I recently been spending a lot more time on TV tropes than is probably good for my health.
That would be any time.
Yeah. But I stumbled across this thing it's a Lovecraft type webcomic by a guy named Adam J. Thaxton. And
I'm already going insane.
Oh yes, it's called Ow My Sanity. And it's still in its natal stages, it's still young. But the stated goal of the author is to stab the magical girlfriend genre through the chest with a rusty chainsaw. The main character is a guy named David Bartlett, whose life is in the shitter. It pretty much has been since the day he was born. But he's at Miskatonic University.
Good place.
Yeah, everything's already gone wrong. But as it happens, his roommates in his dorm room decide to summon something from beyond the pale of time.
That's a brilliant idea. I support this plan.
Trying to think of something witty, to go with Miskatonic University, and the only thing I can come up with is Catatonic University, but probably no relation.
But
now I have an idea.
David is not actually part of the cult, but he stumbles upon it just after they have summoned aforementioned beastie from beyond the pale of time.
And
what happens is the creature has been summoned with the intent of granting its summoner's wishes. Now, because the cult's wishes tended to be the general run-of-the-mill ones, they died in moments of horrible ecstasy.
Wait. Horrible. That's an oxymoron.
No.
Unfortunately, I haven't actually read any of the Lovecraft books. I know the idea. I know the very, very, very basic, not plot, but I think you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. It's tentacle rape. It's not tentacle rape. It's mind rape. I was going to say that first part doesn't actually sound that... Anyway. No, it's
I'm saying nothing.
Talk to Mal about that.
I'm saying nothing.
I'm sure Mal could hook you up.
What happens is, David is approached by the tentacled entity, he realizes, well, I'm going to die. And the last thing he goes through his head, the one wish that he has, is he doesn't want, wealth or power or any of that. He just wants someone to give a shit about him for once. And that's exactly... He wants someone to genuinely care for him for once. And the entity has no idea what he's talking about. And she cannot move on and get out of the world until she has successfully finished the pact and granted his wish. And to do that, she has to understand what it means to care about someone. So she takes on the form of a human woman and takes on the name of Nancy Alhazred.
Okay.
And it sort of spirals out of control from there. The author has stated that it will eventually end up being a harem type thing. It's essentially supposed to be Ah My Goddess meets H.P. Lovecraft.
I'm interested.
Very cool.
I'm very interested.
Shub Niggeruff is the cool big sis. Yeah.
Okay, this book is called Ow My Sanity? Okay, I'm going to totally find it online.
This webcomic is called Ow My Sanity. It's actually very new. It's interesting to watch Nancy because she's not human, but in order to fulfill her pact, she has to become more human. And it's interesting to watch her go from being a cool, unemotional entity into developing an emotional connection. And
Data gets his emotion chip.
Yes, it's essentially that over an extended period of time. And when she first feels fear is actually a very heartwarming moment because David's response is to just pull her into a hug until she stops being afraid. Which incidentally causes her to shove him back and blush. And if you have not lived until you have seen an eldritch abomination blush.
Okay, link me to this comic now. It is kind of
cute to see.
All right, I will do.
NowMySanity.comicgenesis.com.
Yes.
comicgenesis.com.
Wait, 2 people can't go to the Comic Genesis website. It'll go down.
No.
No. I think I've just witnessed the site divide by zero. No.
So,
I have pictures of that. What happens when you divide by zero? The house imploded.
Just imploded?
There's a tunnel that goes through it. Suddenly, I'll show it to you later.
Yeah.
so
Well, that's me. That's all I got.
once again, thank you. We would like to. Sounds fun. We would like to thank our hosts and sponsors, Shastrix.
Shastrix!
We should one day compile just all the Shastrix stings we've done over time. So, thank you, Shastrix. Just let's recap whatever our projects are.
There, I just linked it. Dividing by zero.
Okay.
You need to see it.
While not
awesome.
dividing by zero, Xepharon, what do you do? What are you up to right now?
Well, other than sitting in Starbucks, I am currently now, as of this recording, like it says, in Houston, Texas, and I have absolutely no idea where anything's at. That's the other thing. It took me 25 minutes to find the Starbucks. It's half a mile away from the house that I'm staying at with my girlfriend. That I am proud to announce that I have.
You swing up to the Austin area and say hi.
Oh yeah, you are in that area. How far is that? Anyway, so
a few hours.
Maybe, but yeah, I'm in Houston, and while I have absolutely no idea where anything is at, I am at least of good enough knowledge to know to stay on the main road that I am familiar with, at least with the name, and know which direction I left from, so I can go back and get home.
So,
my project, learn Houston's layout, lose more weight because I can't actually move here until the Army says I'm in enough physical shape to actually pass the PT test, or APFT rather. And for those of you who don't know, that's the Army Physical Fitness Test. And once I'm in shape, I can go ahead and then make my move. I can't do that until then. So that's my project. Diet, exercise, quit being fat.
Okay. ChroniclerC, you got a project?
Find a job.
Oh yeah, I'm doing that too. Oh, there's a Ren Fair coming up next weekend that I'm going to. Totally dressing up for.
Oh no, you're going to the Texas Ren Fair?
Yes. On Halloween.
Ajac, you have a project?
Well, let's see. There's world domination, obviously. There's finding a job.
Are you still doing world domination through the Nerd Revolution?
Yeah.
I totally need to get back to doing the news blogs because I
yeah
haven't done that in a while.
Yeah, I'm trying to restart the blogs. Let me see, what else have I done? At my university, I'm trying to help found a tabletop gaming club for D&D, Star Wars, and Risk and chess, and pretty much anything that doesn't require an Xbox to play.
Awesome.
You mean like everything else?
Yeah, actually, we've already got our constitution written up and everything, and we're just waiting for final approval. And I have it on good authority that we're going to get it. So,
cool.
Yeah.
My own project, I found out recently that I am now being paid the highest amount that Apple can actually pay somebody in my position. So
Cool.
I will either be changing positions, branching out on my own, or changing jobs sometime within the next year, because, yes, I do need more money to continue
Raising a kid. It's like I say, do not be irreplaceable, because then you're not promotable.
Well, fortunately, I am replaceable, so I am eminently promotable, just finding the right position to be promoted to, if I don't just, become a massive billionaire through my own.
Hey, if you become a billionaire, remember, there's a lot of us on the Bunnycast who are...
Hey, do you know how much gold-plated Rolls Royces cost? These things don't pay for themselves,
Well, we're not asking for you to give us some money. We're asking you to give us a job.
Oh,
right?
there's a story I got to tell you guys after the podcast.
I mean, I'm not asking for much, only 6 Rolexes.
Okay, don't forget, El Goonish Shive, the webcomic. Go read it, learn it, love it, live it.
Or the owl will eat you.
Or the owl will eat you. And say goodnight, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
You are never going to learn.
I'm never going to learn. I'm never going to learn.
It's all messed up all in my hair. I've got you, I don't care.
The Bunnycast is brought to you by Shastrix.com. Alguna Shive is written, drawn, and copyright owned by Dan Shive. Alguna Shive can be found at http://algunashive.com.
Power in my hand, the world at my command. But now all that I want is just to be your man. It's a crazy world, in a twisted turn of reality. It's you and me, and I need you here to keep some sanity. We are but pawns in a faded game of cat and mouse. Maybe a couple of guinea pigs thrown out here and there. It's a crazy world, it's all messed up in my head. I got you, I don't care.
I think God takes a D5 and rolls it.